الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى وسلم على سيدنا محمد سيدنا وسندنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته وأهل بيته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So today we're going to try something a little bit different, which is I have a live studio audience here. MashaAllah, my little ones are going to be listening. So they promise that they'll be quiet and well behaved. But if you feel a little bit of wrestling in the back, then that's who it is. And hopefully you also gather your little ones, your kids, your elders, your family members for a little bit of benefit, inshallah, before it's time to open the fast. Barakallahu feekum. By the way, all these people, all the wonderful people, they say Assalamu alaikum in the comment section, like Muhammad Masroor Malik, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, to you and to everybody who says salam, if I get a chance to get to you or not, inshallah. But I always read them and reply to all the salams that come in the comment section. Barakallahu feekum. So we continue our discussion with regards to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And when we last left off, basically the magicians that Pharaoh had kind of hired to do his kind of like PR spin against Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, they realized that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam was the real deal, and they actually accepted his nubuwah and submitted to Allah Ta'ala, and for that Pharaoh had killed them, and they said that there's no harm in whatever you do, because whatever Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam just showed us, it shows that what he's saying is real, and if we're going to go back to the Lord, then we're more concerned that he should be happy with us. And so what happens is there's a lot of things that happen then in the aftermath. Basically what happens, there's a push and pull between Fir'aun and Musa alayhi salam, that Allah Ta'ala sends down a bunch of plagues onto Egypt. And basically the plagues come down on Egypt. Why? Because Pharaoh will not allow the Banu Israel to go. He'll keep them in slavery and he will not let them go. And finally he comes to the point that, look, if he says to Musa alayhi salam, if you ask Allah Ta'ala to remove these plagues from us, we'll let you guys go. And so Sayyidina Musa asks Allah Ta'ala to lift the plagues, and the plagues go away. And at that time, Fir'aun reneges on his promise, because that's the kind of guy he is. He's just incorrigible. He never learns his lesson. And so what happens is then Allah Ta'ala describes in the words of the recounting of Surah Al-Shu'ara. Like we mentioned, there are at least two relatively long surahs that are mainly themed around the story of Sayyidina Musa, and a number of other surahs in which his story is told again and again from a number of different angles and aspects. Each one is unique and has its own benefits that a person gets from it. So reading from the recounting of Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah Ta'ala says that we revealed to Musa alayhi salam to leave in some part of the night with Banu Israel. Just get up and go. You guys get up and go. Leave Egypt. This is your time. You got to go and go ahead and move quickly, because you're going to be followed. They're not going to let you go. They're not going to let you go. And when the Egyptian army finds out, and the Egyptian government and the pharaonic machinery finds out what happens, they pursue them, and they say, "Innahum la shirzimatun qalilun." And for those of you who are like Arabic speakers, like shirzima is not a normal word that people use in their daily speech. It also shows the fasaha and the eloquence of the Quran. That the pharaonic army says these are just like a ragtag small band of people. It's like going to be shooting fish in the barrel, basically, is the sentiment that they express. فأرسل فرعون في المدائن حاشرين إن هؤلاء لشرذمة قليلون وإنهم لغائظون وإنا لجميع حاذرون. And so he basically sends his callers and criers to gather the troops, and so we're gonna put these people out now. They've made our to-do list, and that's it. We're gonna get them. And they have really upset us now. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَنَا لَغَائِظُونَ. They've really upset us. وَإِنَّا لَجَمِيعٌ حاذرون وحاضرون في قراءة, that we're on guard, we're at attention, meaning we're like, this is something that we're made for this. And so Allah Ta'ala makes a comment. He says فأخرجناهم من جنات وعيون وكنوز ومقام كريم. He says that they were in their own homes sleeping at night. They were in their own homes sleeping at night. He says that, look, we made them wake up from their homes early in the morning, and from their gardens, and from their their like springs of water, and like, wouldn't it be nice to have like a spring of water in the backyard? You know what I mean? And so these are wealthy people. They have like these like nice places that they live, and wa maqamin kareem. Kunuz, they have treasures, and maqam and kareem, all of them, like, they woke up in the morning to leave them, which is hard. It's not easy, right? Allah Ta'ala got them to leave of their own volition. And what's going to end up happening? Are they going to get any benefit from it? No, they're just going to themselves drown themselves in the water, as the story is about to tell. Spoiler alert. And Allah Ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْرَثْنَاهَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. And so that Banu Israel, they were the slaves, they were the weak ones. These guys, they were like, that's it, we're going to go get them. And look at all the good stuff that they wasted, and look at Banu Israel, how weak they were, and look at what Allah gave them afterward. That the earth that they inherited after the pharaonic army that will be drowned, that they'll go into the water, and the earth will be inherited afterward by these Banu Israel that themselves, were afraid that they would be killed. فَأَتْبَعُوهُ مُشْرِقِينَ. So they all left early in the morning. And perhaps there's also a meaning. The actual meaning of it is mushriqeen means like at the time of shuruq, at the time of sunrise. And it so happened that they were also heading east. Sharq also means east in Arabic language. فَلَمَّا تَرَاءَ الْجَمْعَانِ قَالَ أَصْحَابُ مُوسَى إِنَّا لَمُدْرَكُونَ. This is like one of the most chilling scenes in the entire Quran. And at the same time, one of the ones that fills a person of faith with the most hope. That he says, Allah Ta'ala says that when the two huge groups, Banu Israel, like women and children and weak people, laborers, slaves, huddled masses yearning to be free, to put it in Statue of Liberty terms, right? When the two groups of people, they saw each other, and then on the other side, there's like Pharaoh's army, like mounted with armor and with weapons and horses and all of these other things. When the two like huge groups of people saw each other, like one of them is like the predator and the other one's like the prey. The companions of Musa alayhi salam, they said, that's it. Inna la mudrakun. The jig is up. That's it. They got us now. We have nowhere to flee. They got us. They're going to kill us all. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, look at the iman that he has, because he doesn't know what's going to happen right now. All he knows is he gets the command from Allah that it's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to go. Allah said you have to go. You have to go. And so he says قال موسى كلا إن معي ربي سيهدين. No, this jig is not up. Kalla. I completely refute and reject what you have to say. Why? Because my Lord is with me, and he'll show me a way through this. On one side is the army of Pharaoh, and on the other side is the sea. And everybody thinks it's all over. The pharaonic armies thinks it's over. The Banu Israel thinks it's over. Everyone thinks it's over. Musa's like, alayhi salam, he's like, it's not over. It's not over. He says, why? My Lord is with me. He'll show me a way through. He'll show me a way through this. And فأوحينا إلى موسى أن يضرب بعصاك البحر فانفلق فكانوا كل فرق كالطود العظيم. So we told Musa alayhi salam to touch your staff to the water. We told Musa alayhi salam to touch your staff to the sea, and then the sea parted, and it literally parted into. The Jalalain comments that it not only parted, but it parted into 12 different pathways. Why? Because that's the number of tribes that Banu Israel are, the Asbat, right? We mentioned from before that from the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, Levi doesn't have a tribe. Rather, his progeny, they live amongst the other tribes, and they serve as their priests that carry out their sacred functions. They serve as their priestly caste. That's why, like, you may see this name, like, amongst Jews to this day, Levi, or like Leibowitz, or something like that. They all indicate priestly descent. Oftentimes you'll see them like on production credits for for like Hollywood productions and things like that, because the Banu Israel no longer maintains a priesthood. The rabbinical Judaism doesn't retain a priesthood anymore, but that's what that is. And so, what are the 12 tribes? The progeny of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, his two sons, each of them have a tribe, and that's the 12 tribes. That each of the tribes, they had their own pathway to go through. And so this was a miracle Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed. And so they entered into this dry sea, and the Quran itself mentions at a different point that that the path was actually dry. It wasn't even moist. The water moved and separated so completely that the pathways were dry, and the Banu Israel went in and they crossed. And there's a hadith of Tirmidhi, which I've mentioned perhaps in talks in the masjid before, but it's like such an awesome hadith. It really is worth mentioning again and again. That Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he says to him, he says, Ya Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, oh Muhammad, if you had seen me on that day, I came to Pharaoh in the form of Haman, his minister, and I told him, let's go into the sea and chase them. And Pharaoh's like, I'm not going in there, like, because he sees it's obviously a miracle, right? And so he sees that it's obviously a miracle, and he has his common sense. He knows better than to go inside. And what happens is Sayyidina Jibreel says, I'm goading him and trying to encourage him, let's go in and get them. We'll kill them in the sea. And he won't agree. And so what happens is finally I took a stick and I hit his horse so hard that it ran into the sea, and the entire Egyptian army followed him. And Sayyidina Jibreel told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that once the last of Banu Israel was out on the other side, and the last of the Egyptian pharaonic army was into the water, Allah Ta'ala, his hukam, his ruling came down that the sides of these massive these massive mountains of water that had separated, that they should all come crashing down on them and drown Pharaoh and his army. And Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam said that even when he was drowning, I was filling his mouth with water so that he couldn't speak. Out of fear, even though I knew that this was the fate that Allah had decreed for him before he created the heavens and earth, that Pharaoh would drown and meet his end this way. Despite that, my fear was that he would say La ilaha illallah, that there's no God except for Allah, and somehow the power of this La ilaha illallah would somehow prevent him from meeting that fate that he was destined. And so, out of fear of him saying it, I was filling his mouth with water in the last minute, so that he couldn't escape his fate. And I mentioned this, as bears mentioning again and again. We should always mention this, that none of us is a greater criminal in the court of Allah Ta'ala than Pharaoh is. And none of us, our mouths are being filled with water. So one of the great lessons we should take from this, everyone has a nafs inside of in ego inside of them that could make them worse than Pharaoh. One of the lessons that we should take from this is that you should say La ilaha illallah again and again, and receive its barakat and the forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala, and come back into line whenever you remember to do so. And so the Pharaoh and his army, Pharaoh and his Haman, his advisor, his minister, and their armies, all of them were drowned in the water, and Banu Israel made it to safety on the other side. And it was definitely not the last of their struggles and their trials, but until the day of judgment. This is a great mercy of Allah Ta'ala and a great gift of Allah Ta'ala for which every person who believes in Him should be thankful. That the people of Iman are required to be patient with their difficulties that they go through in this world, because they know that after this life is over, Allah Ta'ala's justice is going to be served. However, Allah Ta'ala every now and again, from His mercy and His knowledge that the slaves are weak, He will show His might and His power to the people of faith and to the people of no faith, in order so that the people of Iman, the people of faith, their hearts can be cooled and know that the Rabb Tabarak wa Ta'ala is on our side. And so this is a great mercy of Allah Ta'ala for which every believer should be thankful until the day of judgment, that Allah Ta'ala drowned Fir'aun so that we can see in front of our own eyes the blueprints of the way the Lord's justice is going to work on the day of judgment, and that we can be confident that we picked the correct side. So when they come out on the other side, there's a number of other tests that they have to do. Because the thing is this, when you have an enemy that's external and you have to fight that external enemy from the outside, that's actually the easier struggle. Why? Because there's a fair bit of moral clarity in what you're up against, what you're facing. When you have to struggle against yourself and there's nobody else that you can blame your problems on, there's nobody else you can point your fingers to other than yourself, that's a much harder struggle. And so this was a new phase of struggle of Banu Israel, which is what are we going to do now that there's no Pharaoh to pin our problems on and blame our problems for and blame our faults for. What are we going to do now? Now we're in charge. Now Allah is going to see what we do with our time. Allah is going to see what we do with our with our resources. Allah Ta'ala is going to see what we do with our lives now that there's nobody else that is controlling us. And this is a very difficult phase. In fact, it's a more difficult phase than the first one, even though very few people think of it that way. So what ends up happening is that they cross. And imagine there's a huge number of people, and they're crossing like barren desert in order to get from where the Nile flows to where the promised land is, which is Sham. It's Palestine and Jordan and Syria and all of Lebanon, these places. And so how are you going to feed such a huge group of people? It's a logistical nightmare. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down upon them manna and salwa, manna and quail, which is, really like a nice thing to eat. It's like they would be considered a delicacy if we were to be served them nowadays. And one of the lessons that Allah ta'ala teaches us in the Quran is is that Allah ta'ala, he mentions that there were a group of people from Banu Israel. They say, قالوا يا موسى لن نصبر على طعام واحد فادع لنا ربك يخرج لنا مما تنبت الأرض من بقلها وقثائها وفومها وعدسها وبصلها قال أتستبدلون الذي هو أدنى بالذي هو خير. He said that yeah Musa, we got sick of eating the same thing again and again. And we won't be patient. We're going to strike. Well, how can you strike? You don't really have any choice. No, we're going to strike. Allah, if He loves us, He'll give us more. He'll give us something else, which is unfortunately a very unthankful attitude. But Allah Ta'ala is patient. And the thing is that the point of this is not to be like, oh, look how horrible Banu Israel is. We do worse than that ourselves. The point of all of these stories is so that we learn a lesson. Allah gave us homes. Allah gave us food to eat. Allah gave us clothing. Allah Ta'ala gave us lives. Allah Ta'ala gave us freedom. He gave us from every وَعَطَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَن تُحْصُوهَا. He said that Allah gave you from everything. Every single type of blessing you asked Him for, He gave you from it. He may not have given you like everything that not everyone is like the sole owner of the entire universe or whatever, but like everything. When we were hungry, we got food. When we were thirsty, we got something to drink. When we wanted clothing, we got clothing. When we wanted a place to live, we got a place to live. When we were sick, Allah cured us from every genus of blessing. Allah gave to us from every genus of blessings. And if we count the number of blessings Allah gave us, we wouldn't be able to enumerate them all. We wouldn't be able to count them all. And we do this type of stuff all the time. Still, we refuse to, sometimes get up for prayer, or to abstain from something that's haram, or to perform something that's an obligation, or to keep our word with people, or to render people their rights, to render zakat, the right of the poor, to the poor, etc. This happens, and the point of the stories is not, again, to dump on other people, but to look in our own lives. Are we doing that right now ourselves? And so Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam had to be patient with it. And he look what kind of a person he was. He was soft-hearted. He asked Allah Ta'ala for permission that, can they get these things? And he says, go into whatever people we pass by, cities we pass by, go in and trade and take these things, like whatever adas, like lentils and onion, basal, and like these types of things that that you want. So atastabdiluna alladhi huwa adna billadhi huwa khair. Are you Allah gave you manna and quail. Are you seeking to replace that thing which is low in quality with that thing that you already have, which is better than it? Go, whatever you asked for, go. You get permission from Allah Ta'ala to go and seek it out. But because of that ingratitude, there's a darb on those people. ضُرِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ وَالْمَسْكَنَةُ وَبَاءُوا بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. That because of that, there was a humiliation they had to suffer, and a maskana, a type of poverty that they had to suffer because of their ingratitude to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you're thankful for what I give you, I will give you more of it. If you're thankful to Allah for what I give you, I'll give you more of it. وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. And if you're ungrateful, then know that my torment is severe. And unfortunately, what will happen is that they will repeat the same mistake again, and in even worse fashion. And that is that when they pass by a group of people that are worshiping an idol, and they see how beautiful the outward form of their worship is, and they see how beautiful their temples are, they're taken by this they're taken by the surface level, skin deep level beauty of what they're doing. So we want to give us a god like they have a god, right? Meaning what? First, they're saying we don't want to eat manna and quail, so give us some dal and some onions, some adas and basal and whatever. And now what are they saying? Give us a god like they have a god. And this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam to go to the Mount Tur in order to receive the Torah, which is Allah Ta'ala's supreme blessing and gift on any people until that time. And the only thing that rivals it is what the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam received from Allah Ta'ala. And both of them are from the divine speech, so they're equal in that sense. But in terms of the amount of barakah that creation will experience, the only thing that's greater than the Torah from the revelations of Allah Ta'ala is what? The only thing that's greater than the Torah is the Quran itself. The Torah was hitherto the greatest of God's blessings to the people. And we mentioned a little bit about that earlier. Otherwise, even the society that we live in, if you go to the state capital of any state in the United States, or if you go to like DC, all of the architecture is Greco-Roman. Those are people, they used to worship idols, and they used to literally make human beings fight each other to the death in the Colosseum for fun. They were people who were filled with cruelty and with no knowledge of Allah and no rahmah or mercy inside of their hearts. They literally used to the reason they used to take their kids to watch gladiator fights is so that the kids, whatever innate aboriginal mercy was inside of their hearts, they would lose it. They would kill it, right? And then the hukum of the Torah, the values and the value of life, and the value of justice, and the value of fairness, and the siding with the oppressed against the oppressor, etc. These values then will even bring khair into the lands of the pagans through the Christianity. So it's a great mercy of Allah Ta'ala on the entire world. And while he's receiving this revelation from Allah Ta'ala, What do his people say? They say, give us a god like they have a god. And so they will gather their gold, and they will make an idol of a calf, and an individual by the name of Samiri will thereafter say that this is the God that delivered you from Egypt, and this is the God of Musa and Harun, and so you should worship this. You should bow toward it and show it your loyalty and your fealty. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, when he comes back from having the miqat of the Lord, 40 days in order to receive the revelation of the Torah in written forms. It's written on tablets. So this is very different than the way that the revelation came on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was from his heart and from his tongue. The Quran is an oral transmission, is qira'ah, it's recitation, whereas the Torah was maktub al-alwah. It was written on the tablets. That he literally, in his anger, when he sees what happens, this entire thing has basically gone sideways. He drops the alwah, and he goes straight to his brother, and he says something to him. He and his brother, he says, "Oh my dear brother," Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam. So, "Oh my brother," he says, that don't grab me by the beard. وَلَا تُشْمِتْ بِالْأَعْدَاء, don't destroy me in front of our enemies. He said, Sayyidina Musa asked him, he says, why once you saw that they went astray, why didn't you leave them? This is pretty screwed up that they started worshiping an idol, right? So why didn't you leave them as soon as you saw that they went astray? And he says, I know exactly what you're saying. The only thing I was afraid of is what? أن تقول فرقت بين بني إسرائيل, that if we had made a break in our people at this time, it wouldn't have been possible to bring them back together again. And remember, Harun alayhi salam is also a Nabi. He's also a prophet, even though his rank is less than that of his little brother Musa alayhi salam. But he's also a prophet, and his insight into this matter is a very valuable one. That it is a prophetic virtue to try to keep things together rather than to try to effect a break by force. And so what happens is that the Banu Israel, when Sayyidina Musa comes back and he's their leader, he basically shuts this whole thing down and says, look, this calf is, what is it? He goes, it neither can hear you, nor can it respond to you, nor can it help you, nor can it harm you. And it can't even help itself. And look what we're going to do to it. We are going to smash into pieces, and then we're going to burn its ashes, and we're going to rent it asunder. And whoever worshipped the calf, your punishment is that you have to kill yourself. This is the only way that you'll expiate the sin against the Lord from yourselves. And then Allah Ta'ala thereafter forgave Banu Israel for this grave treachery, which again is a sign of the mercy of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. That look at the amount of help that the people received, and look at what treachery they did. And to be sure, it wasn't all of Banu Israel; it was a section of them. But still, Allah Ta'ala, when they made tawbah, when they repented from it, Allah accepted it from them, which is a sign of hope for us as well. That when we do wrong things, and sometimes the things that we do are very wrong. And again, if it's bad enough that you're complaining that you have manna and quail given to you for free in the middle of the desert, and replacing with dal and onions. So how much worse is it that you are replacing Allah, who created the heavens and the earth from nothing, and who saved you from Banu Israel with a statue of a calf, which doesn't really make much sense at all from any which way, from any side of it. And so what happens is Allah Ta'ala will take them across through the desert. Now something happens during this time, which is mentioned by our Mufassirin, which is that during the wandering of Banu Israel, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam will actually go to Makkah Mukarramah, and they will perform Hajj. They will make tawaf of the house of Allah Ta'ala, and they will perform Hajj, which is not all that far-fetched. If you look at the map, if Banu Israel is wandering for 40 years in the desert, then this is not something all that far-fetched, because it's not all that far away. Furthermore, one of the things that I mentioned, and this is not necessarily my opinion religiously, but it is something I found interesting that when I was in the NELC department at the University of Washington, the Near Eastern Language and Civilization department, one of the professors actually mentioned to me, he goes, it's written in and he's not a Muslim, by the way. He says, it's written in the books of tafsir that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam made Hajj. And I said, yeah. He says, one of the names of the Mount Sinai is Horab in the Bible. And he goes, the Mount Horab is actually closer to Tabuk than it is to the Sinai Peninsula. And he says that it's really not all that far from Hijaz at all. I mean, it's really just on the doorstep of Hijaz, the region of the Arabian Peninsula that both Medina Munawwara and Makkah Mukarramah are in. And so that's he mentioned that I don't think it's all that far-fetched that he could have made it to Makkah Mukarramah. And but at any rate, they wander for 40 years. And the reason for their wandering for 40 years in the desert was a punishment for a particular thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, look, I saved you from Banu Israel, I delivered you from slavery. Now this is your land, I give it to you, you have to fight for it. You have to fight for it. This is your land, this is the land of your forefathers, but you have to fight for it. The people who live there are people who neither worship Allah nor do they respect the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or respect any Nabi alayhi salam, and they worship idols, and they are people who are not, they're not people who are worthy of rule in the land. So you fight with them, and I'm with you. And so what ends up happening is that they refuse to do so. It's written, it's recorded in the book of Allah Ta'ala that they say, Inna fiha qawman jabbarin, that there are in that land, they're giants. How are we going to fight with them? اذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنها هنا قاعدون. Yeah, Musa, go, you and your Lord, the two of you, go and fight. We're going to be waiting here. We're going to be sitting here and waiting. And in particular, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them to enter a particular city and to take it, and to follow a particular procedure in the way that they enter. And whoever follows that procedure and enters through the proper gate in the proper way, Allah ta'ala will give them his help. And out of the entire Banu Israel, only two people will follow those instructions, and those are Yusha bin Nun and Caleb, the biblical prophets that are mentioned not by name in the Quran, but they are mentioned. There's a reference to them in Surah Al-Ma'idah, but they're not mentioned by name. But they are mentioned by name in the Hebrew scriptures as Joshua and Caleb. And the two of them received nubuwah from Allah Ta'ala. Yusha bin Nun is actually the Khalifa of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. He receives nubuwah after Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and he's the Nabi and the Amir of the Banu Israel after Sayyidina Musa dies. But because none of them will adhere to these instructions, then Allah Ta'ala punishes them by saying that you will wander, you'll never make it to the promised land. And once the last of the generation that doesn't follow the instructions passes, then Allah's help will be with those who fight afterward. And so Yusha bin Nun, then if you read the biblical scriptures, he is the Amir of Banu Israel, and during his lifetime, during his imara, his leadership, then the cities of what is now Palestine and Sham, Bilad al-Sham, will start to fall to Banu Israel, and they will establish the sacred kingdom that rules by the rule of Allah Ta'ala and his messengers alayhim assalam, and by the rule of the Torah. But this is a summary of the life of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. There are a number of stories about Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that are mentioned in the hadith literature with regards to this ummah as well. That in the primordial realm, when the prophets were shown the future, when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam saw this ummah, he asked Allah Ta'ala, he says, Ya Allah, make me one of them. And Allah Ta'ala says to him, no, Musa, you will yourself be a great prophet, and you'll have a great ummah of your own. And this is one of the things that the Banu Israel to this day If they're to be asked, and the greatest of Allah's prophets that were sent to him is Musa alayhi salam, and carried with him the greatest of God's revelation that was sent to the people before us, which is the Torah itself. But the connection between him and between this ummah is great, and this is one of the reasons why we tell these stories and we celebrate these stories, and we say these stories are about us, the people who should be thankful for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, crushing the armies of Fir'aun in the water, are not the people who are occupying the sacred lands, and who are making Palestinians carry like different color license plates, and live in like small concentrated ghettos where they're being subjected to genocide, where our brothers and sisters in Gaza are being literally starved to death and have white phosphorus rain down on them from the sky just for trying to live in their ancestral homelands. Those people have more nisbah toward Hitler, and they have more nisbah toward toward Pharaoh than they do to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. Rather, the people who have the right to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam are the people who follow his message, and the people who believe in the meeting, the liqa, and the meeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, and the people who side with justice and with the oppressed against the oppressor. And it's for this reason that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to fast on the 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura, because it was considered to be, the fast of that day was considered to be a sacred day from the tradition of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the Arabs used to venerate that day. When he came to Medina Munawwara and he saw that the Jews of Medina fast on that day as well, he asked them, why do you fast on this day? Because they were very proud that their lineage goes back not to the Arabs, but to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and to the biblical prophets. And so they said that this is the day that Allah Ta'ala gave victory to Banu Israel over Pharaoh. And so we fast out of thanksgiving on this day. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? He says, I have more right to be thankful for Allah's help of Sayyidina Musa than you do. And so he used to fast on that day. And then after that, he said, if Allah gives me life for another year, I'll fast on 2 days, either the day before Ashura, with Ashura, or the day after it, so as to show that not only do we have ownership of this day, but to increase and to show that our connection with it is greater than that of others. And let it be like a friendly rivalry. If somebody says, well, you Muslims, you just talk a big game. Okay, you go ahead and fast for 3 days, and you go ahead and take the values of the Torah and show the world how precious they are to you, and how much you're going to live that upright and virtuous life, and how you're going to live like Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam did, and that you're going to oppose those people who live like the Pharaoh lives. Show the world what you're made of, and then people will see the proof is in the pudding. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. Allah Ta'ala protect us, that we should be the people who carry the Quran around in our hands, and say assalamu alaikum and bismillah, and pray the salat 5 times a day. But the secret hidden inside of our heart is the secret of Pharaoh, and there are people in this ummah waliyadu billah that are like that. And we see some of them in front of our faces, in front of our eyes, what they do to those people who are underneath their control, and how they are heartless and cruel and merciless with one another. They spill one another's blood, and they exploit, and they live with a very parasitic relationship with the masses of the Muslims. Those people who Allah loves, and those people who the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed great love and concern for. Allah Ta'ala protect us from being like that. Allah Ta'ala weed such people like that from out from amongst our midst. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala clean the hearts and make the people like those more like those who were with Sayyidina Musa and supported him from the Banu Israel. Certainly not all of them went astray. Not all of them went and worshipped the calf. Not all of them complained about the manna and salwa. There were those amongst them who kept it real, and because of that, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He says in the Surah Sajda that we made them imams. We made them imams of mankind that called the people toward guidance. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make us amongst those people. And the advice Allah Ta'ala gives, if you want to be from that group of people in this ummah as well, He gives that advice to Banu Israel, and it's again not just something for them to do, but it's also for us to take a lesson from. يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأوفوا بعهدي أوف بعهدكم وإياي فارهبون. O Banu Israel, remember the blessings that the Lord bestowed upon you, and fulfill your covenant with me, so that I fulfill your covenant with me. I will fulfill my covenant with you, and you should be in awe of me. Allah Ta'ala says you should be in awe of me. وَإِيَّايَ فَارْهَبُونَ وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. وَإِيَّايَ فَارْهَبُونَ وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. He says that don't hide the truth and try to mix the truth with the falsehood in order to confuse yourself and confuse other people. When you know better, just do what's right. You don't have to try to mix things up in order to obscure what the haqq is. And establish the prayer. Establish the prayer, meaning what? Not just that you pray yourself, but your homes, everyone. Make sure that everyone in your homes is praying. Make sure that the masajid are filled with those who pray. Establish the prayer and give zakat, the regular tithe from people's money, so that the poor are taken care of. And be from amongst those people, the raki'in, the people who read one rak'ah after another, one rak'ah after the other. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. And this is the most important piece of advice that Allah gave. That the piece of it, all of it is important, but the piece of advice that I most wanted to share, which Allah Ta'ala وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Allah Ta'ala says, and you seek help from Allah from two means. Anyone who's in any difficulty, big or small, seek help from Allah in two means. One is what? Sabr, through steadfastness, through patience. And patience is not just being like a limp fish and just taking everything that happens, in stride. Rather, patience is having a plan and sticking with it. Being with the haqq and sticking with it, never letting it go, no matter what happens, come hell or high water. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. And the other is the prayer, that through the prayer you seek what you need from Allah Ta'ala. And this is a lesson that the ummah knows, but some of us have forgotten, which is, if you want something from Allah Ta'ala, put your face on the floor and ask Him. If you want something from Allah, make wudu and face the qibla and ask Him. If something is difficult, if someone's giving you a hard time, if something's giving you a hard time, if you're afraid of something, if you long for something, whatever it is, Allah Ta'ala, the fact that you ask Him, it's a sign that He wants to give it to you or give you something even better than it. So seek help from Allah Ta'ala. How? With sabr, with patience, with salah. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. It's going to be too difficult for people, except for those people who are humble in front of the Lord. الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ وَأَنَّهُ إِلَيْهِ راجعون. Except for those people who are humble in front of Allah Ta'ala, and those people who have a feeling inside that they're going to meet their Lord one day, and that they're going to return to Him one day. Allah Ta'ala make all of us from amongst those people, and Allah Ta'ala strengthen this nisbah and this connection to the haqq, to the haqq Jalla wa Ala inside of our hearts, and make our hearts vessels of light, of nur, that fills with these things, that allows us to overwhelm and overcome the difficulties of the life of this world, which were meant to be a test. Wa sallallahu tabarak wa ta'ala wa sallama ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.